Welcome to another episode of Between Two Dots, brought to you by Intention Media, where we interview guests and try to discover how they live an intentional life. On today's podcast, we're joined by Kevin Webster. Kevin is the CEO of KidSport at Calgary and area and the Flames Sports Bank. Kevin moved to Calgary in 2005 from Ontario to pursue a career in sports. He began his journey with Hockey Canada, where he was a manager in their marketing and events department. He was fortunate enough to have almost 9 years of traveling the country to work on 35 plus hockey events, from the inaugural World Junior Challenge in Yorkville, Saskatchewan, to the greatest World Junior Championship ever hosted in Canada, which is held right here in Alberta in 2012. In 2014, he had made a change in career and gave him true roots in our community as he took on the leadership role with KidSports Calgary and area. This was a great conversation with Kevin, just to hear his story, see the common thread as it relates to leadership and sport in his life, and learn more about the amazing organization that's making a real impact in our community. Please join me in welcoming Kevin to the podcast. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Where are you taking the call from today?
I'm at home today in varsity, but yeah, thanks for having me on this. Looking forward to having a chat.
Yeah, no, it's really great because, through this platform, we get to meet up and connect with a lot of individuals, but I'm really excited to get to know you a little better and hear your story.
Yeah, thank you.
So perhaps that's a good segue. So you're in varsity, that's being in Calgary. Has that always been home, or where did you grow up? What was your early childhood like?
Yeah, kind of few stops along the way. I lived in Whitby, Ontario until grade three. My mom was a nurse and my dad was in the banking world, so he got transferred to Peterborough, which is what I still kind of call home. Grew up in Peterborough, met all my friends and long-term buddies there, and we still connect and hang out. Lived there until just after university. I went to the University of Ottawa, and then kind of bounced around Ontario, starting out my career, and always seemed to find a role in sports along the way, until I got the opportunity to come out to Calgary, which started in 2005 when I first came here for a job with Hockey Canada.
Got it. So Whitby, obviously you're really young then, but like where is that? What's the population of it approximately?
Yeah, population, Peterborough and Whitby would be somewhat similar, probably in the, at the time in the low 70,000s. Whitby's grown a fair bit now. Peterborough is probably in the low 80,000s. Just Whitby's probably 40 minutes, maybe a half hour east of Toronto, and Peterborough's an hour, 20 minutes east of Toronto. Both kind of great communities and lots of young families, especially in Whitby now as Toronto spreads out.
Got it. And did you have any siblings growing up?
Yeah, I got a twin brother and an older brother, so three boys in the house that kept our parents busy at all times.
Yeah, I imagine. Yeah, it must have been a lot for your mom to deal with three boys as well. So we
Yeah,
we have two sons, and they're a handful in of itself. But just imagining a third would be a little chaotic.
yeah, she's definitely a saint, and yeah, she now I think likes the grandkid side a lot better, because we can raise them and she can spoil them. So
Absolutely. That's kind of a rite of passage. Once you kind of get to that stage, it's a different relationship, right? And that's their role.
yeah, you got it.
Yeah. Um, so growing up, did you and your brothers, uh, I guess, were you guys pretty close? Did you guys get into some trouble growing up, or were you guys pretty well behaved?
Yeah, I would say pretty well behaved. Definitely found some trouble now and again. I might have been the leader of the trouble side, but I'd say as brothers we had definitely our own paths, but always kind of interconnected and crossed over and reminded us the relationships that we had built. My twin brother and I played different sports and had some different friends growing up, and then when we went away to university, I kind of realized that connection. He went to university where my older brother went to university at Wilfrid Laurier. So they built a different bond there. My older brother and I worked together growing up. We had the opportunity, 3 years different, but we had the opportunity to play some sports together. So built a unique bond through that. And yeah, I think now with our kids in our lives, we've connected a different level as we share parenting successes and challenges, and pride of our nieces and nephews, and watching those that you wouldn't put in the parenting state. Even I relate this to my best friends back home that I kind of consider like brothers as well, but to watch them become fathers is a pretty cool thing to witness, and see how they've created a great bond with their kids and influenced their development.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, you mentioned, you guys were pretty active in sports. What kind of sports were you playing? I assume hockey was one of them, but what else were you guys up to?
Yeah, pretty much all of it growing up. It took, when you get to high school and you get the opportunity to try everything, it was, the chance to play basketball, the chance to play volleyball, football, rugby. And through those created, totally different pathways. Rugby's wasn't a super popular sport in Peterborough until, we were in high school, and we had a teacher come from England, Tony Askew, who kind of really got rugby going at our high school. So my older brother's year was kind of the first group to go through it, and then our group lost a provincial final and created a lot of fans of rugby, and players that went on to play men's rugby in the Peterborough Pagan system, and chased a different sport that we probably didn't even realize was something in terms of a sporting side, but the social and friendship side that came from that was also a great addition to that opportunity for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I know a few people that have been involved in rugby. My sister even played rugby in, I think, high school and that sort of stuff. So it's uh, it's a pretty big sport internationally, but maybe less popular than things like hockey and that sort of stuff in Canada, right? So
Yeah, and I think it's growing. I think there's a lot of national team members. Even in this city, there's some great leaders in the rugby community that are giving back and really trying to grow it. My daughter's 9, so she tried rugby for the first time this year, and she fell in love with it, because some older people that look after her as a caregiver after school kind of recruited her to come try it, and now she loves it. So some other people I know in the local rugby community, it's been neat kind of sharing photos and stories of her getting the opportunity to go try that sport. So
awesome. And what kind of student were you growing up? Were you pretty straight A, or was it hard for you to kind of concentrate in class? What was that like?
I think it was concentrating was a choice. I wouldn't say it was hard. I think for me, definitely through high school, sports kept me connected to the academics. Not being able to play on a team game that night after school if I didn't go to class, and if I wasn't doing well, was always a good kind of carrot for me to commit to school. I think when I did commit, I was able to be successful. University, I had to walk the line of appreciating, understanding, and realizing some of the freedoms I had as a young adult, kind of out on my own. And um, first year was a bit of a struggle, so I had to pull my socks up and dig in after that. And then I did very well academically for the last few years of university, which gave me a degree, but also set me up to have a bunch of skills coming out of that, just understanding how I learn and connect with different topics, and use some of that to help me figure out where I was going to go in my career and what I was going to do next.
Yeah, amazing. And What did you take for post-secondary?
I took a Bachelor of Science in Human Kinetics at the University of Ottawa. So at the time, I knew I liked the sports side. I knew I liked, the human body and movement and how that all worked. I wasn't sure about the science side, but I really loved the biomechanics and some of the physics side that we learned there. But ultimately, it was, just sticking close to sport and something that had been a big part of my life that, opened some doors to me after that.
Yeah, well, that's great. And where does your journey go from kind of finishing that degree? Where do you go from there?
I wasn't sure when I finished university. My first try to get some jobs in some career pathways that I thought were unsuccessful. So I, growing up in Peterborough, I'd worked at a butcher shop, Franz's butcher shop, from the age of 12 onward. So I created a great bond there and learned a lot about the business. So when I hadn't figured something out, I went back to Franz and Heather and talked to them about, taking more of a leadership role there. Um, I was there for a few months when another door opened, and they were, like a second set of parents to me. So it was a tough conversation, but also one they were happy to support. So I took an internship with DC United in Major League Soccer. So I moved to Manassas, Virginia, and commuted to the Washington, D.C. practice facility for their soccer team and worked game days at the old RFK Stadium. There's three other Canadians I worked with that were on internships, so created some great friendships there, and had a ton of very unique experiences, including being a mascot in the 1999 MLS Cup final, which I was not trained for, but this was a lot of fun. From there, I started working on the Vanier Cup with a company out of Toronto called True Gravity Sports. So I was their event manager for the University Football Championship that at the time was held at Skydome, now Rogers Center. And then the last 2 years of that, we moved it to Ivor Wynne Stadium, and in Hamilton for the first time being outdoors in many years for that event. So that was some great learnings, great opportunity to meet a ton of people in various roles in sport, including mentorship roles that I had to fall under some really great leaders in sport that I was able to be mentored by and learn under, that helped me get a job at the University of Wilfrid Laurier, where my older brother was working, and I ran their football stadium and all their home athletic events before accepting a job with Hockey Canada, where I moved out to Calgary in 2005 and took over a role as manager for marketing and events. For them, I traveled the country working on all their junior A and under 17, kind of their domestic events until 2009. I got a chance to work on my first World Juniors in Ottawa and did three of those: Ottawa, Saskatoon, Regina, and then Edmonton, Calgary was my last stop before 2014. I accepted the job with KidSport Calgary, where I am today.
Amazing. Yeah, it seems like all those experiences kind of led up to the opportunity that you find yourself in today. You mentioned that you did have some great mentors along the way. What were some of the lessons that they imparted on you?
Yeah, I think, from my parents being, hard work and um, doing the right thing, being a good person, those are, always sticks with me. We all had paper routes and cut lawns and did a lot of things around our sporting commitments. And then Franz, through the butcher shop, from very early age of managing my sport schedule with a work schedule and the flexibility that he provided, but also, the ability to learn how a business runs from someone that immigrated to Canada, worked for, probably a good 20 years to before his, business was in a place where he could, maybe pay himself, that you can learn, a ton of lessons. And, the main one, being present, never getting outworked, and always being great to those that are your stakeholders, in his case, customers and suppliers, creating, great relationships. From there, I think the sport world taught me, again, just how important relationships are. There's, being in the event space for, a big chunk of it, a lot of events, get recognized under, a few people that, this person did this or that, but there's hundreds of people from, at the Vanier Cup side, from, volunteers that would bring kids teams out at halftime, or a halftime show, to the host that, spent the week with the teams, to, the people cleaning out locker rooms and making sure it was going to be a great experience for the players, from, signage companies and the referees, everyone that kind of contributes their piece to the big puzzle that is, event that, needs to be celebrated. So learning that quickly, from an early age, to see how other people, interacted and treating those individuals, was, something that always stuck with me, in terms of, you know, knowing who the Zamboni driver is, knowing who the janitors are, because when something goes wrong, you need to, get everyone, quickly supporting it to help you get things kind of back on path, and recognizing those individuals as, key contributors to those events even being possible, right? So from them all the way up to the biggest sponsors and, the head coaches and teams that compete.
Yeah. No, it's a big machine to kind of bring moments and events like that together, right? So it's a lot of moving parts. Um, hearing your story, there seems to be like a really strong thread as it relates to um, organizations and leadership and sport. Uh, it's oftentimes when people tell their story, it all seems like a straight path or a straight line. But as we know, life doesn't necessarily work that way. Um, just wondering if there was like a bump in the road or a setback or something difficult that you can share that perhaps at the time was really hard to deal with, but resulted in something positive or a learning coming out of that.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think, when we moved the Vanier Cup, to the outdoor stadium in Hamilton, I had a decision to make to leave my job at Wilfrid Laurier, that, I was able to do, the Vanier Cup, the role I had with the Vanier Cup as a contract, um, at the same time, but I was given the opportunity to be the event director, as we moved it outdoors. So I had the choice to, take it on and leave the job. Lots of uncertainty in terms of the role, the company I was working for, but there were some good people involved, and I had a few years of experience that I thought, we could build the right pieces. The nuance that I didn't really consider was, the relationship we had with the Sky Dome, and in particular the event manager there, Leslie Lavelle, that, really made that event, tick in terms of the contractual obligations, the opportunities for sponsors. Moving to a new venue, I didn't have the experiences. We learned, as we negotiated with, the Hamilton Tiger Cats and their new ownership group and their ticketing team and stuff. We just, hadn't had to go down that path before. So, I think that lack of experience, definitely impacted, some of our abilities to, achieve what we wanted to get done. But I think through some of those struggles, opened, many new doors. The one that comes to mind in Hamilton is, we were introduced to Russ Jackson, who's, one of the greatest Canadian quarterbacks ever. And Russ, lent a lot of his time and his, wife's involvement and family time to trying to get us to fill a section of the stadium with kids. And it was probably the most memorable of those 2 years is just seeing how proud Russ was, who'd accomplished everything in a Canadian football stadium that could ever be done. But to see how proud he was to, see us kind of overcome some obstacles by, building new opportunities, by giving some corporate area partners a chance to, just fill some seats with kids that had the time of their life. So,
Yeah. I mean, seeing experience through kids' eyes are just, you mentioned you have kids. How old are your kids now?
13 and 9.
Okay. Yeah, you guys are in a different life stage than us. As I mentioned, we have two boys, 5 and 7. So it's really fun, really active, but it's always so great to see them experience the world through their eyes, because things that you take for granted, they just like light up, and it just kind of brings you back to, the essence of the whole experience, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think some of the things that have been, my wife also very involved in sport, and the things we talk about with, our kids is, a lot of the times is how they're, dealing with some of the challenges, right? Or the failure that sport brings, and the connection and building friendships that, aren't always going to be your best friend, but amongst a team or a sport, you have to build a relationship, and, what that looks like, and the struggles that, sometimes go with that when kids don't, fully have quite the understanding of, why it's needed, um, how valuable everyone on that team could be, right, when it comes down to it. So there's been lots of great conversations about, more not the success side, but some of the struggles and development side that we've witnessed through the eyes of our kids. So
Yeah, absolutely. Perhaps you can take a moment to tell the audience, for those who do not know, what KidSports does, and maybe highlight kind of your role in the organization.
yeah, I was fortunate to learn, like I'll share with the audience, 11 years ago now, more myself about KidSport, because at the time, I'd been in Calgary for 9 years, and I'd heard of KidSport, but I didn't really know a lot about it. And as I, started to meet with the board to investigate this opportunity, I did a lot more research, and, started to really understand just how impactful this, charity is, not only in our community, but with chapters right across the country. So KidSport is really built to support low income families, so that they can access sport. So in Calgary, we provide registration fees, to support Calgary and area kids, that would qualify for assistance, so they can have their fees paid, as well as no cost equipment through our Flame Sports Bank that we have here in the city as well. All with the goal of giving kids those opportunities, some of which we were just talking about, not to become a professional, but to experience sport and build the friendships, and, meet the mentors and coaches that can help them, more as humans versus, as athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that I'm learning more and more is, especially just kind of walking through that, having children and young children kind of starting to get into activities and things of that nature. It's people, like young people, need positive adult role models in different spots that are not their parents as well, right? So I think sport is a critical avenue to that.
Without a doubt. I think, I talk with people I coach with and other parents all the time. Like, I've been telling my kid that for weeks, but once you told them once, it clicked, right? So, yeah, and I think every child deserves that opportunity, right? To, you know, meet some of the coaches. Maybe they don't appreciate, how they maybe bring the message, but they get the message, and then some of the coaches that they, fall in love with and think, are the greatest, coaches they've ever had. And when I, reflect on my amateur sporting life, which it still is today, there's lots of people along that journey, from team managers that, our garage was full of, juice bottles and pop bottles for fundraisers that, families would slide by and pick up what they ordered. And now with our kids, we've got Spalumbo's orders and Apple orders, and the community that comes together to see our kids interact and have a chance to, see what those people give of their time and their, professional lives in terms of how their businesses maybe get involved, or they use some of that intellect they have to support teams and growth of teams. And our kids get the, great opportunity to learn from those people outside our house, which is a really great thing about sport for sure.
Yeah. So how are the local chapters like all organized? Are they pretty independent, or is there like an overarching support system and communication with the different chapters? How does that work?
Yeah, so KidSport Canada is the national chapter. They oversee some national partnerships as well as the brand, the charity number, and some of the infrastructure that's in place to support applications and fundraising. And then every provincial has a chapter. So in Alberta, we work through KidSport Alberta in terms of our reporting. And then every individual chapter is responsible in their area for the raising the funds to support kids in their area, outreach in their area, events, partnerships, stewardship, all the pieces of the charity that would make it successful in their community. So in Calgary and area, we've been fortunate over time to build a very strong brand and charity, and we are the largest chapter in the country now, which predates me by a long shot in terms of the many people that got it started and have committed time to this over the 30 years now that we celebrate this year, and ensuring that people in our community know about KidSport, how to support it, how to get help from it. And that's something that we are constantly doing every day as volunteers and chapter involvement across the country would be doing in their communities the same.
Yeah. No, congratulations on 30 years. Congratulations on being the largest chapter in the country. What kind of statistics are you able to share on the organization and impact and what you guys are involved in?
Yeah, I can share them all. I can rhyme a lot of them off the top of my head, but last year we supported 9,800 kids with registration fee assistance. So a little over $3.5 million we distributed back into 600 plus local Calgary and area sport clubs that have a KidSport kid participating in it, where we helped contribute towards their registration fees. And then we helped another 4,000 kids with no cost equipment through the sport bank, which was about 17,000 pieces of no cost equipment that we gave out to kids, families, and programs and around our community, to make sure the two main barriers facing low income families when it comes to sport are cost and equipment, that we're doing our part to tear those down and give kids the chance to experience sport and participate in the sport of their choice, which is a key piece of it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And, more exposure to not-for-profit and charity space. Inevitably, you're always expected to do more with less. I'm always curious about the, I guess even from your early days with the butcher shop and the business economics of how things work. Like what are your major funding sources? Is it primarily through donations, or do you guys get some support from other levels of government and that sort of thing too?
Yeah, so the last couple of years we've had a great level of support through the government of Alberta and their Every Kid Can Play grant program. We're very fortunate. The past Minister of Sport, Minister Scow, started the Every Kid Can Play grant program, and KidSport has been a key piece of it since they got it off the ground. So that's been a huge contributor to especially the demand increase that we've seen here over the last couple of years. Prior to that, we were not receiving government funding. So, in my time, for the majority of it, KidSport has been community funded. We do that in a variety of different ways. In Calgary, we're very fortunate to have a lot of really great events that happen on an annual basis. and then some very unique and new events and one-off events or annual events that pick a different charity partner that we get associated with on a year-by-year basis. So about 40% of our funding comes from events, and then individual and corporate donors, combined make up probably 20%. We apply for grants all the time, from a variety of different streams and sources. And then we do campaigns and unique programs. Like we have a couple in the city here, Gordon, Lori, Clayton, that run the KidSport recycling program that go to households and companies and sport facilities and pick up their refundable beverage containers and turn those into dollars for kids that need our help. So from 10 cents a can to large corporate donors that support us on an annual basis. We're constantly looking at what the next partnership would be and how we can build one with those group of individuals, that company, whomever it might be, that can be sustainable and rewarding for both sides of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That I think we're fortunate to be in Calgary, Alberta, just generally. Like I feel like there is a culture of philanthropy that may not be as strong in other places. I don't know. You've lived other places. Like, I'm not sure if you have a comment or context around that.
Yeah, I think, Peterborough is a much different scope than here, but, I think it was, definitely part of the culture, that Franz would have had at the butcher shop, or, different people I would have saw that I interacted with in my time there. But coming to Calgary, it is definitely, something built here that is very unique and tough to really, put words to it. Just, how philanthropic and just how, foundational it is within our community. There's been some really strong leadership in this city that have been very successful business leaders that have made sure that they have many avenues to give back through charity partners they support, to events that they support. I look at like the Rogers Charity Classic that is now, I think, 14 years in the city, that's raised a ton of money for a lot of children's charities in the province, including KidSport. But that event doesn't get started without the patrons group that, Clay Rydell started up many years ago, and now his kids, Jim and Sue, continue to build philanthropic pathways within the community and the amazing work they do. And those are, just a couple names, but there's a Mount Rushmore of leaders that, have paved a very strong pathway in the city for future leaders to see and know that it is important. And yeah, raising kids here and them seeing what I do every day, but not knowing a lot about it beforehand, has definitely educated me a lot and informed a lot of, decisions I make on, where you give your time and dollars when available to, help strengthen our community. And there's many great ways to do that.
Yeah, no, that's I completely agree, and it's fantastic to be part of the Calgary business community and see those leaders do pretty remarkable things, foundational things that kind of put the tracks in place for others to kind of ride down in the future. So I completely agree with you. In terms of the major events that move the needle for you guys annually, maybe you can kind of highlight what to watch out for, ways that people can kind of put that on their radar and get involved.
Yeah, I'll maybe highlight a couple that are coming up. And these are some we're more organizing on our own end, but there's also some great community events that are going to happen in parallel to these that I'd like to just touch on quick. But the Duncan McRae Memorial Golf Tournament that Duncan's parents, Sandy and Allison, and sister Taylor, have run as a hockey tournament in his memory, and now turned into a golf tournament that have raised over $100,000 for KidSport in its time. Those are the stories that connect us to so many people in this community, right? From the dollars they've raised, but the people they've introduced us to, and the pride that they have in giving back and supporting a charity in their son and brother's name, is so powerful, that those events are really the connector for us, and provide such a great platform and foundation for us to build our annual fundraising and sustainability on those events, and the great history that they've built. We have the Eric Francis Pizza Pig Out that is a staple in the community. That's 24 years this year. So local pizzerias donate pizza. We have 30 plus pizzerias that'll donate a ton of pizza, variety of different flavors, where we fill up Cowboys and try and vote on Calgary's best pizza. Eric has given a couple decades of his time to KidSport, as well as using his profile and platform to really showcase his pride and passion for the work that we're doing in our community. The Pizza Pig Out's one event, but he does so much more throughout the year. This year, with our 30th anniversary, we're going to host our first ever gala, which will be, if we do it again, would be an anniversary every 5th year, but this year is all about the 30th year. We didn't get to celebrate 25 as we wanted to, being that it was in the pandemic years. So we're going to host our first ever Sneakers and Dreamers Gala, which will be at WinSport, which is one of our great sport facilities that many KidSport kids go through. And through our partnership with WinSport, we help a ton of kids participate in their programs. So we need you to wear your best sneakers and put on your nicest outfit and come celebrate 30 years. We're going to highlight a lot of the stories from the original founders, Kelly Blackshaw, Kathy Salmon, that started a group here in Calgary, and they're still involved today, that got KidSport chapters started in 12 different communities in Alberta, to the many other stories and milestones along the way. Prior to my time, Jerome McGinley was a huge supporter in what we did. One of our single largest ever single individual donors, and 2 board members at the time, James and Andy McCreath, started a Hanging in the Dome with Jerome t-shirt that had a photo of Jerome when he was a kid on it, that they thought they might sell a couple hundred t-shirts. They sold a couple thousand t-shirts. So we're going to bring back the t-shirts as part of the gala. There's so many stories, and our goal with this is obviously to raise a ton of money to help ensure kids in 2026 and beyond get the support they deserve, but also to really tell some of those stories, but let the people that have been involved over those 30 years, put their hand up and come forward and share their story, and what stood out for them in their time volunteering or donating, or being involved in the board with KidSport here in our community, as well as the KidSport kids that we've been supporting since 1995, and finding out where they are now and what role sport has played in their lives. I just met a gentleman the other day, Evan Birch, that is an ultra marathoner now, and we funded him. His mom shared even the original paperwork, he said, but we funded him into soccer here in Calgary in the late 90s. So being one of the kids that was impacted in the early years, and to see where he's at now, and his interest in giving back to KidSport and through some of the initiatives he has, those are like what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
We want to help 10,000 more kids next year, and we want the dollars to do it, but we want to make sure our community is energized, and the people that have been involved can carry the torch, and a great sense of pride for the impact that they've helped have over the last 30 years.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing. And it must be surreal to hear those types of stories, and talk to those individuals that have been impacted by KidSport so many years ago, and now they're doing remarkable things and getting back involved in the organization, right? So that's totally full circle.
Yeah, and I think that is what's going to drive KidSport for the next 30 years, right? The 5, 6, 7 year olds that we were funding in those early years, and the power of sport and what role it's played and how they can help tell that story or get involved as we continue to look to try and help more kids that need us.
This episode is brought to you by Bloom Benefits Group. Bloom Benefits is disrupting employee benefits by rethinking the status quo. They provide exceptional customer service while saving you money. Bloom offers group benefits and retirement products, health and wellness accounts, executive benefits, life insurance, and disability and critical illness. Available to companies across Canada, Bloom helps clients save money without interrupting current plans. Check them out at bluebenefits.ca.
Young professionals, families, and entrepreneurs. What makes Zelos Investment Counsel different? Our independence, client focus, and access. Zelos Investment Counsel is independent from banks and brokerages, which ensures clients' best interests are served without corporate conflicts. We are fiduciary portfolio managers with a duty to clients that doesn't exist in the brokerage model. At Zelos Investment Counsel, we exist to care for our clients, and every day we strive to help our clients reach their goals. We provide our clients with access to institutional investment managers and sector specialists through our proprietary investment structure. For more information, book your no obligation meeting today at zelosglobal.com. That's www.zelosglobal.com.
Attention all car owners. Is the winter weather turning your beloved ride into a rusty relic? Fear not, because we've got the solution you've been dreaming of: Crown Rust Protection. Picture this: your car defying the elements, standing strong against rust like a knight in shining armor. Crown Rust Protection is not just a shield, it's an investment in the longevity and resale value of your vehicle. Don't let rust take the wheel. Book your Crown Rust Protection treatment today and let your car embrace its inner superhero. Call now at 403-291-1951 or book your appointment at www.krown.com. Our skilled technicians are ready to give your car the VIP treatment it deserves. Crown Rust Protection, because your car deserves to age like fine wine, not rusty vinegar.
Today's episode is brought to you by Motive, a leading venture builder with over a decade of experience helping corporates and startups build, launch, and scale successful business ventures. Whether you're looking to innovate your business model, develop a game-changing product, or craft a winning go-to-market strategy, Motive is with you every step of the way. Their proven venture building process and technologies help reduce risks and accelerate time to market. Innovation is everywhere. Let's harness it together. Visit motive.digital to learn more. That's Motive spelled M-O-T-I-V. Yeah, no, that's amazing. I'm gonna bug you for the details on some of those events, and I'm sure maybe it's on the website and stuff. We'll get all the links and make sure everything's in the show notes for everyone to access. Yep. Certainly would be interested in trying to come out to some of those and so show some support myself as well. So yeah, no, this is it's great to kind of get more information about the organization, what you guys are involved in, but also hear your story and the path that kind of led you to where you are today. Knowing what you know now, is there any piece of advice that you would give your younger self?
Oh, yeah, it's probably a 4-part series, I'm guessing, but I don't know. I think you need to stumble. I think you need to fail. I think, from through even some of those challenges, I was so very fortunate to have, a friendship group that, like I mentioned earlier, like brothers that I still talk with all the time now that, have kids similar age that are, a sounding board and, role models and an inspiration, watching, my older brother, who's the athletic director at the University of Waterloo, his son now playing football, offensive rookie of the year last year, came out for his first Stampede last year when he turned 18. So I had to do some training ahead of time, but to keep up with them. But all those things are, really what it's all about. And, yeah, sure, I'd give myself some advice to maybe do some things, a little bit different, but I wouldn't want to change a lot because, I'm pretty fortunate where I sit right here today with my wife and kids. We have a great life and great friends around us. That all those decisions, good or bad, got me to where I am today and have built, up who I am. And I think if I wasn't surrounded by as many great people as I was, then, some of those bad decisions maybe would have sent me down, a different road instead of getting bounced back onto the one I ended up on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You are who you hang out with, right? So it's one of those things that I think is true over the course of time. Um, if someone were to ask you what your purpose is, what would you say?
Yeah, I don't know. Bronwyn and I were just talking about this the other night. I'm not, fully sure still. I don't think, I'm not actively involved in sport myself anymore in terms of playing or participating. I coach my kids. I put a lot of effort into what we're doing with our team, but we have a great team at KidSport and the Flame Sports Bank that energize me and keep me motivated there. My wife's a great sounding board and a great resource to the kids and me, but I'm not sure. I think, being a dad, I think I'm constantly looking at, how I do this the best possible way I can, right? And as you know, with a 5 and 7 year old, although there's a lot of books out there, parenting is a constant learning, trying to, learn from how you interacted with them, last week and what you want to help them with tomorrow, right? There's so many opportunities. And I just want to try and be the best version that I can be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Kevin, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate the conversation. I wanted to turn the floor over to you just to, you know, add your closing words, your call to actions, anything that you want to kind of highlight as it relates to having the platform. The floor is yours.
Yeah, and maybe before I do that self-serving stuff, I'd maybe like to highlight some of the stuff you guys have done, Gilbert. Hafiz and I've been connected now for a while through different things, from his Play City app to his new work, in the family business. That he's been such a strong advocate for what we do, but for sport in the community. So I consider myself, very fortunate to have built that relationship. And you and I haven't connected, face to face prior to this, but I touched on, prior to the call starting, the work you did in getting behind Dave Moran and Mike Hansen. And, as we talk about events and just how philanthropic and powerful the Calgary community is, what those guys accomplished through, surrounding themselves and getting people on board like yourselves to amplify what they're doing and build, a runner base and get more people talking about it. Raising $1 million for 3 charities, running 10 marathons in 10 provinces in 10 days, like both of those things are like Mount Everest when it comes to, two people tackling something in a very short period of time, and they did it all. So thanks for your involvement in that. Those guys deserve every kudo and spotlight and pat on the back and high five they can get, because yeah, they killed it and they brought some pretty cool people to the table like yourself while they were doing it. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah, appreciate the appreciate the recognition, but like you said, those two were kind of the lightning rod, if you will, that everyone else rallied around, right? So it was just like a mission that sounded out there and audacious and big, that it just excited the emotion and called people to action. So it was a really great event to be involved in.
Yeah, it was so cool to watch, without a doubt. And I guess when it comes from our end, if when we talk about 30 years, and I touched on a little bit, but maybe if I could just use this platform to connect with any of your listeners, that if you know someone that's volunteered, or you've donated, or you've been to an event, you have a company that wants to be involved in the 30th anniversary in any way. But if you have a KidSport story of any way, whatever that might be, please share it. We'd love to hear it. Whatever that may be, from maybe you put 6 bags of empties outside last week for Gordon Laurie to pick up. Maybe you attended one of our events, maybe you donate monthly, maybe you're just someone that's involved in a sport club and you see the KidSport application across your desk. So whatever it is, we'd love to hear your story and highlight that during this year and into next year, as we continue to build and help more kids that need our help. So
Yeah, amazing. Congratulations again, and looking forward to supporting and celebrating over the course of this year and beyond.
Thank you very much, Gilbert. Appreciate the opportunity to chat today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again for joining us for another episode of Between Two Dots by Intention Media. This podcast is co-hosted by myself, Gilbert Bong, and Hafiz Mita. If you enjoyed this podcast, please rate and review wherever you listen.